I never pictured myself being alive now. And so now I like to think I'll make it. If I don't, it's just a period, at the end of the sentence. The story's told. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just going to tell it as long as I have.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors and ideators so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions, many millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. We certainly don't talk about it enough. And when we do talk about it, many of us, most of us, we're not very good at it. We are not good at listening. Let's not kid ourselves. Most of us suck at it. So one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations and hopefully better conversations, in large part to help more people in more places hopefully feel a little less shitty and a little less alone. Now, if you are a suicide attempt survivor or ideator and you would like to talk, please reach out. Our email is hello@suicidenoted.com. I'd really love to talk with you, so shoot me a message if you'd like, and that's an open invitation indefinitely. Anything you want to learn about this podcast, including our membership, ways you can get involved and support, you can see that in the show notes, the podcast description, and our soon finally to be released website, suicidenoted.com. And as you may know, Suicide Noted has a weekly poll on Spotify. So check that out if you're curious. I certainly am curious to hear from you. I want to share some of the results. You may have seen them. You can go back. These polls are live, or most of them are, so you can see the results for yourself. But I want to share some of them starting a couple of months ago. So the question was, how many people do you trust to talk with about your suicidal feelings and or attempts? Most popular answer, nobody. How many people know that you have attempted? Most popular answer, a handful. Were you bullied as a kid? Most common answer, sometimes. Does God exist? Top answer, yes, but a close second for both no and it's complicated. Have you lost anyone to suicide? No was the most common answer. Are you scared to die? Not at all is number one, followed closely by my feelings change and very much. Have you ever been homeless? Never is the most common answer. Are you in contact with your nuclear family? We've got a tie between sometimes and barely. And our most recent one, the pink and purple pill, it is a tie between take it and save it. Check out those polls. So that is all for now. And of course, we are talking about suicide on this podcast. So please take that into account before you listen or as you listen. But I do hope you listen because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Noah. Noah lives in Texas and he is a suicide attempt survivor. Noah.
Hey. Hi.
Noah, where are you from?
I used to live right next to Chicago, but moved
to Texas, right?
Dallas, right by Dallas.
Okay, and I see that you are wearing, that is a yarmulke, yes? There's a pretty large Jewish community there, I would imagine, right?
No, it's pretty good.
Did you know that Sean Wellington is Jewish?
I did not.
Yeah, so it's just me and you, a real Jew, and a guy like me who is absolutely not a real Jew, but technically a real Jew, bar mitzvah, no yarmulke, talking about suicide. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. How old are you, Noah?
I'm 19.
19-year-old
Yes.
From Chicago, now living in Dallas, Texas.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been in Texas?
It's got to be 3 years now.
What do you like better, Illinois or Texas?
Dallas is a lot cleaner than Chicago. I just mean literally, like the streets are cleaner. Ironically, I miss the cold of Illinois because it gets so hot up here.
How many let's just dive right in, right?
Right.
How many suicide attempts do you have?
It depends on how you classify it because you know how it goes. Sometimes you're not really sure if it counts, but too many, let's say like 5 maybe.
Do you remember? So you're 19. How old were you for the first one?
I think it's crazy, but it was 17. It all hit the fan really fast.
So the last 2 years probably been rough.
Yes, except I'm schizoaffective. So once we found the right meds, it got better drastically. It was really, really rough for quite a bit there. So
from birth, even though I know you probably don't remember that,
right,
until about 17, mostly in Chicago. I know you moved.
Right.
Things are what? How would you, I know this is really hard, but like how would you characterize your life, your family, your upbringing?
A lot of people, especially when they get into these kind of places, I don't know. I have a good family. You know
Mm.
what I mean? It was a good environment, which I think is kind of rare, but I was very fortunate. Good parents. The one thing that's stressful is I have 9 siblings. 6
So,
of them are boys. Wait, no, that would including me. So that'd be 7 boys and then 3 girls.
and where are you in the order?
I'm the eldest.
And is your family Orthodox?
Yes, it wasn't always that way, but I am Orthodox now.
Your folks are Orthodox,
Yes.
and they were not, or they were always were?
Well, we started out Christian and then we sort of moved into Hebrew roots and
Hmm.
now I'm Jewish. The rest of my family, they're observant, as in we do all the halakha and the mitzvah and stuff, but it's a transition, they're somewhere in between Christianity and Judaism. So most people would say messianic, but most messianics don't have the level of observance.
You don't hear Christians becoming Jews very often. Like, usually
Oh.
it's kind of really hard to become a Jew.
It is. It's hard to talk about this sort of thing because once you move from one religion to the other, you seem like you're putting the other one down, if you know what I mean. We just started out Christian and I was quite young, so I really thought through this after it sort of happened. But it's just you look at the Bible, the Old Testament, there's a bunch of like holidays, commandments that Christians don't do, but it's in the Bible. So it sort of opens like a little hole and it's like, why is this here? And then just looking in like more in depth, it became more clear to me that I should be observant and following the whole Bible. I have nothing but love for Christians. I love Christians. It just, to me, it felt like there were parts that I could do better, There's
Mhm.
paths I could go down.
And you're going down those paths.
I am currently.
When you move from Chicago to Dallas a few years ago, and that's, I guess, towards the end of the lockdown, probably post-lockdown, but we're still dealing with COVID at that time.
Yeah.
Were you at that time, do you think, schizoaffective, but undiagnosed or not medicated? What was happening?
Yeah, I was unmedicated. The diagnosis came like a year and a half ago, so it's very recent. I wasn't having hallucinations, but I was having mood swings because I have a partial diagnosis of bipolar type 1. So that was evident, but as I understand it, it sort of builds as you get older until it comes out, is what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, it was really just mood swings. And from what I've seen of my brothers and stuff, I think with males, it tends to be lots of anger.
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of anger issues.
So we could say maybe a partially diagnosed,
Right.
not medicated, or at least not medicated in a way that is effective, because
Yeah.
2 or so years ago, when you're 17, you attempt suicide for the first time.
Yeah.
Now, before I ask you about that, I'm wondering, do you remember when you actually started to think about taking your own life?
I'm unfortunately the kind of person where lots of stuff will be going on upstairs and I won't be conscious of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back, I'm like, wow, why was I thinking about that? But at the time, it hadn't occurred to me that this wasn't something that you were normally doing?
So you're saying that you would have these thoughts, but you sort of normalize them, like this is just a normal way?
Right. Just a very morbid mind. Like as a kid, it never crossed my mind that someone could kill themselves. Like it didn't make sense. I hadn't seen it anywhere. I
Mm-hmm.
think the first time I heard about that was ironically Ophelia, Hamlet, I think it is. And that really kind of blew my world. Before that, it was morbid thinking. Like we'd be on the road or whatever, see a cement truck. I'd be like, I wonder what that feels like, stuff like that. And being a boy and a young boy, I think morbid humor is a big hit. So
Yeah. Tell me about the first time when you were 17. What's going on? And tell me about the day, if you would.
honestly, it's hard to remember the specifics of like the events because it was all such a blur. Got really emotional. And for a long time, since like 15, I had developed a cutting habit. Whenever I got like super emotional, I'd take it out that way. And it's hard to remember the day, but I think I was in like a haze. I was listening to music throughout the entire day. And then I was having the cutting session, like, which I did about 3 times a week. So it wasn't that unnormal and it just escalated. Like it felt like I wasn't attached to myself anymore and it just got out of control, spiraled. And
I mean, you were home
yes, I was.
and you're listening to what kind of music?
Actually, it wasn't even like the worst music. I was listening to Alec Benjamin.
When you say get out of control, you're saying that basically you're cutting and then you just cut a lot more.
Yeah, because it just started like on like the forearms and then progressed, and then I just moved on, and it was not good. It started like intentional, slower. It started more like intimate, and then I don't know. I don't think I really sped up. I stopped cleaning it up.
Alec Benjamin is playing in the
Yeah,
background.
it's so dumb. It was like a happy song too.
It's perfect, actually. As weird as that sounds, it's just.
Yeah.
In fact, if I could like lay over, and I never do this right now, this moment when I edit a little Alec Benjamin, if I can get the
Yeah.
cut and I don't get sued for that, can we do that? Because it's just
Yeah, sure.
fucking hell.
It was Boy in the Bubble. I still can't hear that song to this day.
Oh, so when you hear that song this day, what happens? You just
Honestly, I haven't listened to it in a minute, but what used to happen is I just get like real tight in the chest, nervous, a little spacey, you know what I mean?
what happens after? So
At that point, I was 17, I was a minor. I'd been in there for a good long time, and so my mom got suspicious. Obviously, she doesn't know. She probably thinks it's teenage boy stuff. She like knocked on the door or whatever, and I had forgotten to lock it. I've been told addicts always do that. Like once they get into a pattern, you forget the one thing, you know what I mean? You never think you're gonna get caught or it's gonna slip up, and then it does. So she just came in and she didn't see anything, which I thought she had, but I just jammed the door closed. I was like, I'm in here. And then I tried to clean everything up, which was very hard. The dizziness, the blood had ended a long time ago, but lots of adrenaline, heart's pumping. I was very sloppy trying to clean up. I really was not in my right mind. I don't think like when I came out, I looked super distraught because I think people with schizoaffective often are like our faces just go blank. Anyway, I went to my room or whatever, and then my mom went in because she's suspicious, and there was like spurts of blood on stuff. I just had missed it, so
you got scars?
I do. Yes, tell you those will ruin a job interview. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, it is not fair, I don't think, for sure, but cover that shit up at an interview.
Exactly. I was doing it the wrong way. And the ones at that point were not that severe.
Let me skip for a second and then go back. When was the most recent attempt?
Almost a full year ago. Yeah, it had to have been about a year ago.
And so between 17 and a year ago, and that's not a long time, you had a few more attempts. Was it all the same method?
Pretty much. I read a statistic somewhere that girls attempt suicide more than boys, but boys succeed more often. I did the girl methods. That's fortunate for me. That's fortunate for me. They were all basically cutting, hanging, or asphyxiation.
Hold up. I don't know if anybody's calling those the girl methods, but you get to say it because, hey, from cutting to asphyxiation and or hanging, was that just, hey, that didn't work, let me try something else?
Well, I abandoned hanging because it's not like people would think like you just hang there. It needs to be a drop or it's super painful. And also gave me like a really bad throat for a week. But then I sounded like Batman on the call, so it wasn't that bad.
You got a little backup career in stand-up comedy?
I want to be a writer.
Nice. 5 attempts. The first one's cutting. Second, third, fourth, fifth, we've got either... you don't need to go on. I mean, you can share whatever you want about those individual ones. It's up to you. But we've got some cutting, we've got a hanging, and we've got... How do you asphyxiate yourself, or how do you try?
Well, that's something we haven't really touched on yet. But since I was a minor, that meant psych wards and hospitals. Options in there are pretty limited on purpose. But I got sent to a residential. I was having these hallucinations where the floor would keep moving everywhere, so it was hard to walk and I was dizzy. And they were having a unit change while I was there. So we were all supposed to go to this other unit, right? But since they were busy, nobody was really paying attention, and they were handing out trash bags for putting your stuff in. That's how I got kicked out of that residential. That's got to be a first.
You're in there because... Why were you in there?
Well, if you go into the psych ward enough times and you're a minor, they're like, obviously this isn't working. You've been here too many times. We're going to recommend residential. And either you can say yes to going residential, or they can get a doctor to order you to go against your will.
The exact number doesn't matter, but how many times were you in a psych unit before you went to residential?
That's actually pretty embarrassing. I've been in 11 times.
Was it mostly you choosing to go in or someone telling you you must go in?
if you get a doctor order to go in, and if you're against your will, then you can only leave by a complicated system of like okays from the staff. So every time I was going to go in, my parents or whoever was going to bring me in would tell me, "You're going in, whether you like it or not." And then I would just say on the forms that it was voluntary. That way you
Oh,
can get out faster.
clever. Okay.
Well, I didn't know that the first few times.
You learn, we learn.
Live and learn.
What was the first time in a psych unit before the first attempt?
No, I was very secretive, so it was after the first attempt.
Man, the last like 2.5 years for you have been all the while you're a big brother. Are you going to school?
I'm homeschooled.
You've always been homeschooled?
Yeah. The thing about homeschooling, it makes it sound like that was a big effect to me having all these problems. And I'm sure it was part of it. But the thing about homeschooling is when you're good at something, you're not restrained by being in the grade. You can like speed through it. I passed all my English by 15 or something. It also kind of holds you back a little bit because the things that you're not good at, it's harder to force yourself to do them because it's just your parents telling you.
Well, you're good at writing and English and that, but what were you not good at? What's an example of that? Math. Hashtag fuck math. Sorry, math people. It's me and Noah, and that's how we feel. So back to the hospital, and you have an attempt in there, right?
They found me after like 5 minutes because it's a hospital. They're watching everybody. So it wasn't a near death one, not that one. Then they were like, we're going to transfer you to psych ward, like a short term one, because those guys like watch you all the time, all the time. It's like stricter than a residential. But they didn't transfer me right away, which was, they were like, okay, go sit over there in like the living room or whatever, the group room, and we'll transfer you. But then they were watching the unit, so nobody watched me. So I just picked up the trash bag again and, went at it. That time they were like, okay, this is crazy. We're going to get in trouble, which they did. And so they shipped me immediately.
To a place that you had been 11 times and it never helped.
Actually, yes. Well, basically, it was a different hospital. I stayed there for 14 days and then they transferred me to another residential.
When do you get diagnosed and then get meds so that you can start to maybe be better, feel better?
Doctors, especially psych doctors, they have this like reputation for just throwing pills at everything, which I think is true because I was on some really high dose and everything. The thing with schizoaffective is they don't want to diagnose you young. They want to wait as long as possible. And I think you're supposed to be like, unless it's extreme, you're supposed to be an adult. So I wasn't diagnosed with that. For the longest time, it was major depressive disorder with psychotic features.
Do you think that's accurate?
No, I think it's schizoaffective with bipolar type 1.
And now you're on medication that's helping some?
Yeah, but I'm not going to lie. The medication isn't going to fix everything and make you feel great. It helped me with the hallucinations. It was very slow. We tried a million bajillion different meds, and it was really disheartening at times because it felt like nothing was going to work. And when it did work, it was still slow because they had to up the dose slowly, and it really only took care of like the mania, like being up for days on end, or the hallucinations. It wasn't like a depression fix. It really, I feel like I'm talking like I'm out of it, but I feel as if it's like a whole mindset change. Your whole life is upended because for it'd been years of just living, thinking the same way, and it's just really hard to get out of it.
Your old mindset versus like the new mindset? Like, what's the big difference?
I think the biggest change is forcing myself to just be cheesy and think positively because it's the worst thing. It's what everybody will always tell you when you go into anywhere. They'll just be like CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, and they'll have you do exercises in the hospital and here's a positive thought, and it's the worst and it sucks. When you've seen dark places, you don't want to think like that because it doesn't seem true. But just grounding it into my head, like, because in residential, you're just there for ages, like months, and it's just ground into your head until you think to yourself, well, I'm just going to think like, what's the positive here? And if you do it enough times, it becomes, I feel like, a habit in your head. And even though it doesn't change that everything is really crappy, I think it makes you see it different. if you see it a little bit different, it's not going to go away, like the depression and the negative stuff, but you're introducing a competing like thought to the environment. And that way it's not all like, oh, I just want to die. It's more of a balance. Now, obviously there's days when it all goes to hell, but
That's really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah. When was the last time you were in any kind of facility like that? Short term, long
I
term?
think 5 months ago,
When did you find the podcast?
right around when you started, actually. Have you been doing it since 2021?
2020.
2020? Okay, I found it like 2022. I didn't read the whole description about reaching out. I just listened to the episodes. I didn't know you could do that.
Who do you think I'm talking to? Anyway, it worked out because I get weird about talking to people who are, at that age where you're like, are you minor, not minor? I'm
Right.
not even sure the laws or how do you say suicide in Hebrew? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Huh.
I do know rabbis had a little debate because they have a debate about everything.
Rabbis debated or debate about suicide.
Yeah, because the classical view is obviously like, the Catholic thing is like, you go to suicide, you can't be in the same grave, you're going to hell, right? That was a mindset for a while. What they say now is we really don't want anybody to do it. And you can't put them in a psych ward back in the medieval period. So they're just like, don't do it. It's horrible. You'll go to hell. To try to scare people, I don't think that works. And then after a while, more recently, they went over it and actually, what the pogroms are? When everybody was getting kicked out of Russia and stuff, there was this one crazy dude who went around like, let's kill all the babies so they don't get like tortured. That was a huge controversy in the books decades later because they were talking about that. And basically, you're not supposed to do it unless there's like the 3 foundations. You're not allowed to kill another person because if you kill another person, that's like the boundary, right? And then there's sexual immorality and blaspheming the name of God. Aside from those 3 things, you can basically, to save your life or to get out of a situation, you can do pretty much anything. But since the life thing is in there, everyone's like, well, you shouldn't be able to take your own life to get out of a situation. So they had a gnarly little debate, and it basically comes down to like, nobody knows. They all disagree.
I love that you are describing a debate between rabbis as gnarly. It's just perfect. So we don't know.
Well, they're like, well, just don't do it unless you really feel like you have to, but don't do it. That's basically the stand.
Most people who try feel like they have to do it.
Yeah. So,
I don't know about most, but a lot,
you do
right?
feel like you have to do it. It feels like you've reached a point.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. The obstacle that they run into with the conversation is when they say, don't do it unless you really have to. Normally, you're talking about like, oh, they're going to kill my family in horrible ways or something. But if you come down to physical, then you have to make a list of these situations are okay. And then it gets into super gnarly ground and, it's really hard to put definitions. And I think that's why the debate rages for so long. And I think that's why everyone just says, don't do it, because it's an easy out to the situation. It's like, that's not an option. We don't have to talk about that. You're right. When you're down to it, you just feel like you have to do it.
You know it's an option. To say it's not an option is absurd.
It is very absurd. You're right.
I think it's rather insulting. Now, that's not encouraging anybody, but it is an option. But let's boil it down to this. Do you think suicide is an option for you?
I think realistically, anything is an option. I think in my head, I tell myself lies, just like the positive. Tell everything's positive. If I say it's not an option, then when I'm in a super hard moment and I just tell myself it's not an option, just convince myself of that, even though it's a lie. Sometimes it makes me do nothing. And then if the feelings go away, then I'm glad and I don't regret it.
That makes sense. Sure. It's like a way to just somehow get through it until things kind of calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
All that said, so now you've been listening to the podcast for a while, and a couple of weeks ago, maybe, I could be wrong, you reach out.
I haven't been listening to every episode.
It's okay.
It would be like, it would come out and every once in a while I'll go and I'll be like, this looks interesting again. Sometimes, I have a thing with voices, and if I don't like the person's voice, I just switch to a different episode.
What makes you want to reach out in the last couple of weeks? What changes, if anything? What was that? Just that you happened to get curious and you realized you could reach out?
I just thought of a few episodes. I don't remember which ones, but they kind of helped me not feel alone, because when this sort of thing happens, it feels like a secret you have to keep from everybody.
Mm.
right? Like what about the job interview, not going in without long sleeves or whatever?
Mm.
It feels like somebody's going to judge you.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to like somehow help somebody else to feel that it wasn't a secret and they didn't have to be scared of it.
Is this a secret that you keep from family?
I used to. From family, well, they knew ever since the first attempt. I realized after a few hospitalizations that if I wanted any chance of getting out, I had to stop keeping the secret. And even though I didn't want to get out, I decided that was the best option. And so I didn't keep
Mhm.
it a secret. But I did keep it a secret from everybody else for a
Right.
long time. It's only recently that I just didn't care.
How do you tell them? Is that like a social media thing, or what do you do?
I just stopped wearing short sleeves.
Ah, and then people ask or they shy away from that?
I think most people had already guessed. My close friends already knew. Most people, they just, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Normally, you can tell by how they look at you
Mhm.
what they're going to think. And the people who are uncomfortable about it, they just stop
Mhm.
hanging around me
Mm.
after I've been wearing no short sleeves for a while.
When you say no short sleeves, that means you're covering it up.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The other way around.
How old's your youngest sibling?
One.
So they don't know, but do some of your siblings?
Right. Oh, yeah, no, my siblings only like the top three or four know. Top.
Well, that must have been interesting because I mean, so some of this is genetics. So are they also struggling in some ways?
Well, they're young, so
Yeah.
we'll see how it pans out, but I think with my experience, we've learned the signs and how to minimize it, and I think right now, anger issues are the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest warning sign for guys. Well, with me, it was, so
What would happen when you get angry?
just arguments over stupid stuff, like really irritable. I remember thinking that I was super good at arguing and I was very good at trapping people on their words, but looking at other people with anger issues in my family now, I feel like I was just angry,
I mean, you probably were good at it.
possibly, but also it could have just been the mania.
Other question I have around your siblings. That you're the oldest. Is it hard for you, or was it, and or is it, to be the oldest sibling and then because I'm not an oldest sibling, right? Like I don't know what is it like. Is there pressure to be like the best, to be perfect, to be the great role model? And I think it's very cool that you're open about it. That to me is what a big sibling should do. But I'm wondering for you, maybe at points was it like, fuck, I fucked up. I'm not the best
Yeah.
big brother.
I sort of welcomed the hospital at points because I was just a mess and I didn't want my siblings to see. As for being like the oldest and always having to be a great example, I don't feel like that was really me. I think I shirked it. Like I just rebelled. I was like, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna be rebellious, fight a lot. Cool. I never got in like fist fights or anything. I just wrestled people all the time. Like my friends. Got angry at my siblings, argued a lot, I guess is what I mean.
Sure.
My sister, just under me, she's 18 now. She kind of took on the being perfect role,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Do any of them, your parents or your friends, know that you're talking to me about this right now?
I told my parents, nobody else knows. I'm trying to make up my mind if I should tell them or not because I've never really been this open. Like I've told them stuff happened, but I never went into the details. I'm trying to gauge if it would be more damaging because I don't go into details with my parents. I don't feel like any parent should know like the details about how this happened. Maybe it would help them understand me better. So I'm on the fence.
What did your parents say, if anything, when you told them you were going to be talking to a bald dude in North Carolina?
I told my mom first, and she thought it was good. She's always
Oh.
wanted me to, talk about it. I have a thing with not liking therapists. She was happy about it. My dad seemed pleased too. I don't know. Like I said, I have a very nice family. Grateful for that.
Why'd you all move from Chicago to Dallas?
When we were transitioning from Christian to Jewish,
Uh-huh.
we were looking for like a messianic Jewish community because we were halfway, and there's none of that in Illinois. It's like a thing that's almost unique to Texas, and I don't know why.
Wow.
Just in Texas, it seems to be a thing. It doesn't. I don't understand it, but also my dad, he needed a new job, so we were like, oh, it's time we could just move.
I think there's a lot of things about Texas people don't understand.
Right.
If you were thinking about ending your life, or you were just wanting to talk to somebody about feeling suicidal and you didn't want to hold back, Is there anybody in your life you could talk to and you wouldn't feel like, all right, they're going to call so-and-so, I'm going to get sent to a hospital, blah, blah, blah. Just have a good talk.
Yeah, it's really hard to because you have a really good friendship and you really like the person. You talk about most things, but you just don't know how far you can go.
Yeah.
And it's scary because if you go too far, you're afraid you're going to lose the friendship. So I really haven't tested that very much. There's one friend I have, and possibly because he's in a different state, so I don't really speak to him in person anymore. It's texting, and I think that puts a barrier so that it feels like you can share more sometimes. But somehow we just started sharing, and I talked to him about it quite a lot.
Right now, do you wish any of the attempts had worked?
No, I don't think so.
And right now, do you feel suicidal?
No, I'm very lucky to have got out, escaped. It's always in my brain. It's not like I'm thinking about it, like it doesn't occur to me all the time anymore because I'm just changed my lifestyle. But it's always a part of me. Like as long as my scars are on me, it's going to be there. And I have to be vigilant all the time, not to fall back down because it's happened so many times.
It's scary? Does that feel scary?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm one of those guys who just like ignores myself. So I don't really feel scared so often until something happens. I'm like, oh my God, I could have missed this, which is honestly the opposite of what I used to think because something terrible would happen. And then I'd be like, I wish I was dead. I didn't have to go through this. It's funny how that flips.
It really is, though, and you frame that really well.
It's so crazy how that works. I think a lot, and I gave you the like whole story about changing my mindset, but it's hard for me to understand it. I don't know exactly how it happened.
But I mean, do you need to know?
Not really.
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention to the stuff up there.
Well, I think you do pay attention to a lot. You seem very introspective.
Maybe I don't pay attention to me paying attention.
Kid's only 19 and he's bringing it. So when's your birthday?
September 26th.
You think you'll be alive?
I hope so. That's another thing. When I was super, super depressed, I spent a long time thinking, like, I don't know if it's a common thing, but just like sitting around thinking of like elaborate scenarios and what would happen. And I never pictured myself being alive now. I never
Really?
thought I would get this far. And so now I like to think I'll make it. I mean, if I
Huh.
don't, it's just a period. At the end of the sentence, the story's told. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just going to tell it as long as I have. I'm not going to lie. I wrote that down beforehand. I wanted to spring that one out.
Oh, you're dropping wisdom that you had pre-planned. What other stuff have you written down that you want to share?
There's a poem by Robert Lowell.
Kid's a writer. Come on now. Kid's a writer. You're right? You're a writer.
I write. Yeah, I'm a writer. That's my dream. My favorite book is The Great Gatsby. And towards the end, I think the last page is like the best thing I've ever read. I didn't plan this, but actually I have a sticker on my wall with the quote because I like it. It's for a transitory enchanted moment, man must have held his breath. Talking about Gatsby looking to the future, and he has this impossible hope, like the American dream, like of things he wants to realize, and he doesn't realize the consequences, and he doesn't realize how impossible it is, and he died believing in it. When in fact, like it backfired on him throughout the story, like the gas keeper killed him. But it's just, I thought it was so tragic and beautiful that he had this impossible hope that would never happen. It kind of filled him and he lived with it. It's hard to describe. I think maybe because I don't understand it, I tend to romanticize it.
Maybe.
I have it on my wall, so I see it in the morning. Someday I'll think of a little quote to drop sometime about it.
So, I bet you will. Wait, and you'll write it down and we can reconnect. Wait, so I want to understand that. And I read The Great Gatsby, but it's been a long time.
Right.
The impossible hope thing is still hope, right?
Yeah, it is. That's what I like about it. It's a contradiction. It's like a hope. It's something that doesn't belong in the world. The world is so ugly and bloody and it wants to tear you down. Like a big, like, screw you to the world. And it's something that doesn't belong here. And yet you hold it and it gives life meaning. It's like, instead of seeing something crazy happen and then just living your life, it's like writing it down. What's going to happen to the words? They're going to rot. It's going to fade away. Probably nobody will read them, but it's beautiful to you. And it's something you hold that's impossible. And because it's impossible, it seems that more beautiful to me.
I haven't forgotten about the poem. Couple more questions because I think I want to end with the poem with your permission.
Okay.
I think that's the way we're going to end this, baby. What, other than I imagine writing, what helps you feel better, if anything?
It was really, really hard to find things that helped me feel better. And I think I got to a point where I was just so numb that nothing felt better to me and nothing felt like nothing really kept me going. And so I just forced myself to keep writing. And I actually have a notebook and it's crap. There's nothing good in there. I still have it. And I think just getting myself to stay around was the biggest help to me. Just doing nothing. They always tell you in the hospital, and it's the worst thing, and I hate it because I've heard it so many times, but they always tell you, don't try a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's like, no, this isn't temporary. This is my whole life. I'm always going to have it. But again, I think tricking yourself and just being like, I'm going to hold on because in a little while, something's going to happen that I'm going to like, and I'm going to enjoy that moment.
What about myths or misconceptions you want to dispel?
I think the biggest one that people don't say anymore, but I think is still in people's heads is that you're weak. You fell into this trap and you should be better. And what are you doing? Like, it's like a stigma. I don't think that's fair. I don't think anybody's weak. I think just some people's problems are more visible. The other thing, always do in the hospital, they're always like, pay attention to your thoughts and use grounding tools. Grounding tools feel like the dumbest thing on planet Earth for me. When you're having hallucinations, when I was having it, it's like, I can't, like, it just makes me mad trying to do the breathing techniques and ground myself. And they can work. And if they work for you, that's totally fine. But I think the root of what I'm trying to say, there's not like a tool that's going to fix it. Because so much of medicine, they're like, you have a problem and I have a drug for that and it's going to fix it. And that's not how it works. It doesn't work like that. It needs to be rooted into medicine. Like, if the pills don't work, then it's your mind and your thought patterns need to be fixed. And if that doesn't work, then it's your grounding tools and that needs to be fixed. And sometimes I think that's not it. Those can help, but it's more than that. It's not the one thing. It might be all the things combined, but I don't know if that made sense. Enough sense?
Was that your memoir title?
That's a good title.
What else you got? What's your memoir title, Mr.?
Oh, my memoir title.
Yes.
What about whatever it is with a period at the end? The period's important because then it looks artsy.
Possibilities for Noah's memoir or whatever it is with a period. Anything else?
I'm tempted to go the like Mark Manson route with all the cussing in the titles.
But you don't have it yet? You're just playing with it? One of the beauties of never writing a book is that people are like, it would have been a good book.
It would have. Whatever it is.
Subtitle or no subtitle after the period necessary?
The subtitle will be, don't read the fucking subtitle, open the book already. I don't know.
Before we get to the poem, I got two more questions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One, will you listen to this when it comes out in a few months?
I will, yes.
Two, if you end your life, are you going to hell?
I do care. I was going to say I don't care. That's the rebellion. Maybe if I don't think about that and I just try to be a good person, then, I don't really want the God if he's not going to be understanding and talk me through it. And I'm not going to hell unless he convinces me I have to. And that would be a pretty crappy God if he did. Now you got me thinking all the Mark Manson. I got to get... I'd just say, I think the important thing is to find something or somebody that keeps you going. Like, if there's no joy and everything's just crap and it's hell, I think you find something or somebody, and this could lead to a toxic relationship, I'm realizing as I see it, but forget that.
Life is complicated, but you don't want to finish that idea?
If everything's just crappy and it'll never get better, then you gotta do something, because it is an option to do nothing and just end it, but that's not how a good piece of art is made. You gotta do something. If you don't do something, you can't even make a good tragedy, right? It's up to you how to end that. I would suggest don't end it. I'm not saying anybody should do that. I didn't, and that worked for me, but I feel like if you add something to the mix, if you find an idea or a belief, it could be religion, it could be, maybe you just like watching movies and you want to see the next season of Game of Thrones, and you're like, tomorrow I'm going to watch a movie and it's going to be a good movie. Maybe it's a terrible movie. You're like, crap, screw this. And you watch another movie tomorrow.
You think this conversation is possible if you were not on meds?
I think it's possible. I think it would not be good conversation.
Without further ado, Noah in Dallas has got a poem.
It's Robert Lowell, Skunk Hour. It's an interesting poem because the first first 4 verses, a long poem, but you always see it clipped because the bit I'm going to say is the best. It's, I myself am hell, no one's here. That's the line. And I think it's interesting because when you're in depression, for me at least, when you're having all these horrible feelings and thoughts, it's just you're in hell and it's your mind creating it. Everyone else seems to be so happy, but it's just you. You're there, and at the same time, it feels like no one's there because it feels like you're not being you. And I think that really encapsulates all the negatives of the experience. And I guess that's a kind of a depressing way, but I said tons of good stuff about don't do it, so we can end like that.
Hey, whatever it is, period.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, period. Not a comma.
Actually, you know what? A comma might be pretty good.
Not a semicolon, though, right?
Right. I don't know.
Dash?
I'd have to see it on a book cover.
Gotta look at it for sure. Hey, and you know what? It's a process, and see where it goes. Anything else you want to share on this? I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate the conversation. What else you got, if anything?
I don't know. Brevity is valued. Brevity is the best way to give a speech. Nobody wants to sit and listen to it. I think the famous Gettysburg Address is like the shortest speech, right?
It's pretty short.
Everybody knows that one, so.
Maybe it's time to stop.
Right.
I mean, hey, when you're done, right?
Right. I mean, there's more stories I could tell from. Saw some really crazy crap in the hospital, as you would imagine, but.
Brevity, baby. So this talk, you feel good about it?
Yeah.
Would you tell me otherwise?
I would, yeah.
All right, Mr. Big Brother, go back to your family in Dallas. I thank you.
Which brother I'm going to go yell at.
Go yell at. Would you do what you got to do? And thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope you do well, too. I guess it says on your little thing you have your own problems. So thank you for talking to me.
I got my problems, man. Appreciate it. Take care, man.
You too.
As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support. Special thanks to Noah in Texas. Thanks, Noah. If you are a suicide attempt survivor or chronic ideator and you'd like to talk, please reach out. I'd really love to talk with you. Our email is hello@suicidenoted.com. Everything else you might want to know about this podcast is in the show notes or the podcast description or on our very soon, finally to be released website, suicidenoted.com. Thank you for your support and for listening over almost 5 years now. And that is all for episode number 269. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I will talk to you soon.